Hi, everyone. My name is Jeremy, and I am a representative of EHN Canada. We are a nationwide network of treatment centers for addiction, trauma, and mental health. We have facilities located in Nanaimo, British Columbia, Calgary, Alberta, Toronto and Peterborough, Ontario, Montreal, Quebec, and Annapolis County, Nova Scotia. We offer high-quality inpatient, outpatient, and online treatment programs. For more information, please visit our website at www.ehncanada.com. Just in terms of housekeeping, everyone is on mute and cameras are off for today's webinar, but please feel free to use the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen to submit questions for our speakers. We will try to get to as many questions as we can throughout the session. Today's webinar is being recorded, and we will be sending out a follow-up email next week that will include the link to the video, any useful resources, as well as your CEU certificate. We are all located in Toronto. Toronto is located on the traditional territory of several nations, including the Mississauga of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat people. It is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississauga of the Credit. If you're new to this work and want to find out whose land you are on or grew up on, please check out www.native-land.ca. Many more of you may be physically present elsewhere. I encourage everyone to use the chat function to, where applicable, share whose land you are on. To get to today's session, Treatment and Recovery, an EHN Canada Alumni Panel. We first have John Hastings. John has been active in his recovery since 2014, when he first put up his hand to ask for help. Since then, he has attended 2 residential treatment facilities, the last one being Edgewood Treatment Center for Substance Use. After a career in sales and banking, John moved into a role with EHN, where his business experience and lived experience in recovery are valuable assets in his role as National Director, Alumni Relations and Development for EHN Canada. John drives strategy and provides resources for EHN Canada's alumni development teams across the 8 inpatient facilities and the intensive outpatient program for EHN, helping develop supports in the form of social activity, communication, resources, and ongoing engagement opportunities. John is a proud alumnus of EHN and takes his recovery one day at a time. He attends 12-step meetings, engaging with his sponsor, and enjoying an ever-growing community in recovery, while gratefully bringing his best self to his partner and their children. Next, we have Alena Stern. Alena came to Bellwood in May 2019 as a hopeless addict and alcoholic. Previously, she had been in active addiction for the span of over 25 years and chronically relapsed, in and out of 6 treatment centers in 5 years and more detoxes than you could count. Finally, no longer hopeless, Alena found herself living life in ways she had never dreamed were possible. After a career in brand management and direct marketing for 15 years, she found herself looking to enter back into the workforce with a position in which she could use her experience to help others achieve the goal of abstinence. Having received an honors degree in psychology with an emphasis on cognitive and behavioral therapy, she approached Bellwood with the hopes that she could support the team with the incredible work they do. Additionally, she completed her certification as a recovery coach. Please help me welcome Alena and John.
Hi, everyone. Good to be here.
Hey, hello.
Thanks so much for joining us today. So I know I just did brief bios for both of you, but if you want to kind of get into your recovery a little bit and just what brought you here, why you're here today, and why you want to kind of speak to everybody, we can start with you, Alena.
Sure. Yeah, so I'm just really happy to be here. I see everyone saying hello to everyone. Very exciting. Yeah, so I am a person in recovery, as Jeremy just mentioned. And I came on to EHN, particularly Bellwood, as an Alumni Ambassador. And so part of my role here, I work really closely with John and the Alumni Relations team, and we build connection and community both in treatment and outside of treatment. So post-treatment planning. So in treatment, I help organize the fellowship programs. So 12-step meetings, Now that COVID's over, we are able to bring that in person. We have something in person every day. And then we also lead a volunteer program for alumni where they can come back and sort of give back to the community here. We also do alumni events. So we try to create like a thriving community on the outside. The opposite of addiction is connection. And we want people to feel like they come here to treatment, but it's not one and done. So we stay connected, we're a close family, and we do this together. And then we also have alumni speaker series, and just based on what I've gone through, my own experience relapsing so many times and being a chronic relapser, I try to share through like mentorship and guidance and coaching how to handle life on the outside when you get out of here. So what obstacles are and how to remove that. So that's kind of what I do in my role here.
Great. Thank you so much. John, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Jeremy. Thank you for facilitating this and for having us today. Thanks to EHN for giving us this opportunity. And hello to everyone. I saw some familiar names from all over the place chiming in. So in the chat. So really happy to be here and grateful for the opportunity. Yeah, I am. I identify as a recovering alcoholic. I have been, like in the bio you read, Jeremy, I first put up my hand probably 9 years ago, recognizing that something in my life wasn't right, that things were, unmanageable, and that I needed help. And like Alana, my journey has been long and a bit of a roller coaster. And roller coasters have highs and lows. And so over the course of that time, yeah, I've been to a couple different treatment centers. I came to EHN in more of a business capacity and in our admissions department in 2019, partially because of a previous career in sales and in business operations, sales operations, and then last year in 2021, another one of those sort of low points in the roller coaster. I realized I needed some help, and thankfully EHN was there for me, and I was able to go to Edgewood Treatment Facility for their core program last year. So I'm now not only an employee of almost 4 years, but also an alumni. And so my role here as the National Director of Alumni Relations and Development is to develop strategy, support our teams and across the network, and bring our alumni programs and supports and resources that will see them remain engaged with EHN, starting from being inpatient or in our intensive outpatient, and then continuing hopefully for a long time, engaging our alumni once they graduate and move into aftercare or another program or just get back into their life. So we are we've really put some effort in the last sort of 8 months into revamping our alumni program, and Alana is a big part of that here at Bellwood, and we've got folks across the network who help us at our different facilities. And so there's a lot of great opportunity, and I'm very fortunate to be able to be a part of that. So excited to be here today and talk about what our alumni program can bring our current and future alumni, and maybe a little bit about how that affects me in my own recovery.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So now we can get into the questions. So I'll go first with Alana, but what was your experience like seeking out treatment before you found EHN Canada? I know you kind of briefly touched upon it, but if you want to go a little bit more in depth with that, that'd be great.
I should probably unmute myself. Thanks, Jeremy. Yeah, so the struggle was real for me. So Bellwood was my 6th treatment center. I had genuinely believed that I was like treatment resistant at that point. I had tried so many things to get sober, not just therapy, IOPs, extensive DBT, different types of treatment centers. And it just wasn't working for me. And so I'm grateful that I didn't stop. And I'm grateful that a place like Bellwood exists where they sort of look at the comorbid issues, like not just the addiction side, but the mental health side, because ultimately drinking and drugging was my solution to life. But, the problem has always been me. Right. And so, yeah, so it wasn't easy for me. It wasn't easy. It was, John mentioned it's a journey, and it was quite a journey in terms of like getting sober, and then maintaining sobriety outside of treatment was, a second obstacle or a second challenge, which is kind of where we're at now.
Yeah, thank you so much. John, would you like to speak to this as well?
Yeah, I think the question was around the experience of finding treatment or finding resources in recovery. Yeah, I also struggled with this. There's so many steps, or for me, there's been so many steps, and we talk about the first step being asking for help, and then the first step in 12-step recovery is admitting powerless and accepting unmanageability and that type of thing. But that in and of itself is difficult, or was difficult for me. I didn't know where to look. I knew that people were upset with me. I knew that I certainly didn't love myself, but I didn't know sort of how to stop that. Like I had gotten to a place, a decade ago where I was drinking daily, and didn't know how to get out of that. And I think when we don't have resources in our own life, like I'm fortunate that I have family that was somewhat versed in recovery, and I have some immediate family members in recovery, and did even at that time, but I still didn't know enough about it or where to go. And so, there's one person will tell you to go to an AA meeting or an NA meeting or whatever it is. And that's kind of daunting, because until you're sort of exposed to that, there's a lot of misconceptions about 12-step recovery that sometimes prevent us from engaging in it. And then, a common thing, like for me, it was, okay, well, I'll maybe open up to my doctor, or and ask to see a therapist. And so I tried all sorts of things. Therapy, I tried AA meetings, and didn't really stick. I tried, first and foremost, I tried my own harm reduction, and books about harm reduction, and mindfulness, and anything and everything I could try, sort of without being too serious about it. And then it just really got to a point where none of that was working for me. And consequences started to outweigh the benefits of the lifestyle I was living. And so I eventually, got more involved in Alcoholics Anonymous, and then eventually ended up in a treatment center in Toronto. But really, that was because, again, I knew someone who'd been to a treatment center. So one of the big things that I get to do, and Alena and I get to do, is arm our alumni with not just going out and saying like, hey, I went to Bellwood or Edgewood or Sandstone or wherever they went, but we're trying to create an engaged and inspired alumni group that can feel like part of the that they have some agency and license to help people. So for me, it was someone went to another treatment center, and so that's where I went, and then I got I did a 30-day treatment, inpatient treatment stay, I got introduced, that treatment center was all about 12-step recovery, and that got me to a meeting every night and got me involved in the AA community in Toronto. And you know, while I was again back at another treatment center last year, I've come to the realization that this journey is ongoing. Like I am the type of alcoholic that, like, if I get to bed tonight and I haven't taken a drink, then that's a miracle. And I'm armed with all these different things. And I think one of the that help me do that on a day-to-day basis. I think one of the things that EHN offers is just exposure to so many different ways of going about it, because my journey to recovery is not the same as Alana's, and isn't it's not a one size fits all or a script. So you know, it's really about exploring that different balance. For me, it's about exploring that different balance. But it does, to go back to the question, it was difficult to like sort of sort through the noise, especially in active addiction, when I didn't trust anybody. I didn't trust myself. I certainly don't trust the internet. Like I don't know where to go. And so the more I think we arm people that have been through it to go out into the community and their own families and friends and social networks and share that, the hopefully the easier it is for someone to reach out and sort of and ask questions. So.
For sure. Yeah, I completely agree. And I think it really helps with the conversation around like substance use and mental health as a whole is on a good trajectory for being destigmatized, right? So a lot more people are being like, much like this, are open to speaking about it and having those conversations. And I work in marketing, word of mouth is second to none with that kind of stuff, right? Like you said, John, you knew somebody, so like you knew that they did that step and like trusted that facility. So like if it worked for them, if like there's already that secondhand knowledge that they have. So with that kind of stuff, like it's just word of mouth works wonders. And then you're able to have those questions answered that you might have with, again, you don't trust the internet, you don't trust those kind of things, but I can only imagine the process you have to go through. But Alena, do you have something else you would like to mention?
Yeah, thanks, Jeremy. John, that was really great. I can relate to a lot of that. My experience was slightly different in the sense that there is no alcoholism or addiction in my family. No one's even smoked a cigarette. In my culturally, no one has alcoholism. And so turning to my family was very difficult for me because I felt very, very misunderstood. Well, at the same time, I have a disease that actually wants to convince me that I don't have a disease. It's a disease of denial. And so the struggle for me initially in getting help is just asking for it or just realizing that I need it, because I kept thinking I'm normal. Like anyone who had my problems would do this. This is normal. And so there were small moments of grace, and I call them grace because there was these small awakening moments, very brief, like super brief and super quick. I was like, this isn't okay. Like if you keep going this way, you are going to lose everything or you're going to die. And so it was in those moments where I was like, but what do I do? Because I didn't know anyone who had this. And so just like John, though, someone down the line one time had mentioned that they'd gone to treatment somewhere. And so in that small moment of grace, I got on the phone and I started calling. And it was everything is a stepping stone. So I have no regrets about the struggles of my journey. That's what makes me incredibly useful to other people. So I'm grateful for all the pain at the same time, although I wish there was an easier, softer way at times, of course. But and so it was like each thing that I did to try to get sober was a stepping stone for me. So the first was identifying. So meeting people who were other alcoholics and addicts in treatment, in an IOP, through therapists, and just connecting with them, like the power of identification, understanding that, okay, like I'm, like they have gone through what I've gone through too. And when I was able to make it into treatment, that's where I was introduced to Alcoholics Anonymous. And I had never been exposed to that before. And I saw people in those rooms recovered, right? And they had this hope. And I was, all through my journey, I've not really had much hope that I would be able to change or that things would change for me. And unfortunately, in my part of my journey, like I had to hit a really low bottom several times, actually, right? And so that created a gift of desperation for me. And so I think that readiness was a big factor that played into me getting sober this time, because when I landed in Bellwood, which was my last treatment center, like I was ready to go all in, I did what was asked of me, even though a lot of times I didn't understand why I had to do that, or I was defiant. I was still in my defiant stage, and and I had to like put all that aside, and in order to accept the help, and being engaged in a program of recovery, just once you recognize that you have a problem, you get to understand the disease of alcoholism, and the type of disease that you have. And through that knowledge, like, although I don't believe you can solve your problems solely through education, but that knowledge does help me to become aware of what's going on inside me. And that keeps me in the middle of this program.
Great. Thank you so much, Alena. Kind of going off of that too, we do have a question. Do you feel that there is a level of shame created by using the word relapse, or by using traditional recovery methods such as AA, where you count the days of sobriety and then you go back to zero once you use again? John, would you like to speak to that?
Yeah, sure. Something I think Alena and I both identified, that relapse is part of our journey. And I've gone through that, I've gone through that, those feelings of shame around that. It's hard not to, right? It's our society is set up, you either succeed or fail. The entire recovery industry is essentially based around like abstinence, and sometimes there's questions around like, is that actually, like, we offer abstinence-based programming, AA and NA and 12-step recovery. It's all abstinence-based, but I've learned that the counting of days in AA, and the idea that is that there's like shame attached to having to reset that. I think the longer I spend in recovery circles, the more I come to understand that those days are like, each day is a miracle, and yes, there's a counting, but that's also partially to show other people that this can work. And so when I take myself out of myself, by collecting a desire chip, or a 1-month chip, or a 1-year chip, even if it's my 10th, there's someone else in that room who might be in that room for the first time, going like, wow, that guy's doing like, and recognizing that I'm picking up another chip. They're seeing perseverance and strength and courage and all of those things, and that's actually what AA and 12-step recovery is about. We keep, if we come back, we keep coming back, we can do this again. And so I've the way that I approach my recovery is, again, I said this earlier, if I go to sleep tonight and I haven't picked up a drink or a drug, like, that's a miracle to me. Tomorrow's another day. Yesterday has passed. I meet people who have 20 years of sobriety that are miserable, right? So Alena mentioned this, it's less about the actual substance. It's more about like, it's an inside job, right? So we have to work on ourselves. And my goal is to be happy, joyous, and free. It starts by not picking up. But that's just one piece of it. That's why there's 12 steps. And I think that the more we have forums like this, and I was in a peer support group last night, and we were talking about the generational, like, the differences, because my parents didn't have, they had AA meetings, or they were around, but they didn't have Zoom groups and like all the different options that we have now. And so there wasn't a language of recovery in my house growing up. Like, I didn't know about these things. And I'm, in my 40s, and some of the stuff that's going on like wasn't even available to me 20 years ago, when I really started to realize I had a problem. So I feel like I have a bit of a responsibility to carry in my circle, develop language of recovery that's not shame-based, right? I have two little boys, and whether I like it or not, they might have the same, they might come up against the same mental health issues that I struggle with when they grow up, and but I can at least arm them with a language now, and hopefully, to the first question, if they do struggle, they'll know, at least have an idea that there are things that they can turn to. So I would say, to answer the question just about and the use of like the traditional forms and sort of shame-based, I think that's a bit of a representation of what like the heart of 12-step recovery is, because it's really not meant to shame an individual. It's the CHIP system is something to work towards, but also, like I said, provides an example for the newcomer or the person sitting beside you. I share with our clients here often, when they say they don't, I don't want to go to a meeting tonight, right? I don't want to go to that meeting. I don't feel like it. And I remind them that maybe someone else that's going to the meeting hopes that they're there, right? Like it's not necessarily always about me as an individual, because addiction is a disease. It's a self-centered disease, right? Like it makes me, I'll speak for myself, all I focus on is myself when I'm in active addiction. So the more I can pull myself out of self-centered fear and just selfish, what's happening to me now, and start focusing on like, how can I help other people, which is really the 12th step, right? Carrying the message. When we get there, and I know Alana does a ton of this work in her life, with sponsees and the stuff she does with our alumni here, and my whole team, our whole team does that. It's really about like, how can we carry a message, and less about feeling bad about things that have passed and we don't have control over really anymore. I hope that helps.
Yes, thank you so much, John. Alana, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, that was great, John. I'm also a big 12-step proponent and a sponsor, and a lot of my life is dedicated toward helping other people recover, not just professionally, but outside of here as well, personally. And I remember, I call myself, and the language I use is intentional. I call myself a chronic alcoholic or a chronic relapser. And I understand the feelings of shame about having to come back into a room or pick up a desire chip, or having to come to treatment again, or having to do this all over again, because that's how I felt for so many years, right? And part of the narrative that I would tell myself in my addiction was like, you're a failure, like you're a loser, like you can't, you have no meaning, like you have no purpose on this planet, like you just can't seem to get life right, like and so the truth is for me, like I am still finding desire chips. Like it's a great remembrance. I have a little baggie from like cleaning out drawers at my house and finding desire chips. I mean, that's how hard I struggle to maintain even a day of sobriety. And what John did such a great job of talking about as well was that this is one day at a time. How do I get through today? And, if everything is like chaotic and disastrous around me, if I go to bed tonight with as a sober person, then I still won the day. But that's why that's why I use this type of language. And that's why I talk about my experience so much. That's why I'm so open and honest and vulnerable about it, which is not an easy thing to do. But I have to do it because when I do that, I take a lot of the shame off someone else from having to do that as well. And and the power of identification is what keeps people connected to this program and keeps people connected to the path toward recovery by saying, you're not defective, like you're not a failure, like you have a disease and you can recover, in this, I'm not special, right? Like we're all miracles if we stay sober today, but I'm not special. Like anyone can have what we have. They just have to do what we do. And so that allows them the capability to come in and just be humble and take the suggestions and the open-mindedness and the willingness that is required to have to start this journey. And also, like, I just want to say relapse was a big part of my journey, but it doesn't have to be a part of your journey, right? Like there are a lot of people I know, including my sponsor, who's never, she has 17 years of sobriety and she's, she got it on the, she got this gift on the first try, right? But yeah, so I just think it's really important to keep talking about this, to to affect people like on a more higher conscious level. Like we are the same. We might have different experiences and we might have different consequences, but the suffering and the struggle and the disease of addiction is all the same, whether it's, you've tried this 10 times, you try again. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Alena. And just on this, shame is a great topic for in recovery, because shame-based personality and shame-based thinking and all of that. Just wanted to share, and Alena touched on humility, and that was a big struggle for me. Like my character defects, and the things I use to sort of hide them are the opposite of humility, right? I'm prone to being grandiose, and I have perfectionism, and when I lapse into those things, I'm not practicing humility. And one thing I'll say to sort of tie into like my role here is that last year I'd been an EHN employee, responsible for a team and a department here, and I put up my hand and went to Edgewood for their 7-week inpatient core program. And like a part of me really struggled with that, right? I have my peers and people that report to me and the people I report to seeing me say like I'm not well and I need help. And so that was a really hard thing for me. And so I recognize that like that's just an example. Fortunately, we work for an organization that supports their employees, and I was able to do that and supported and loved by my peers and my everyone here. But that example sort of it rang true at my previous job, right? I didn't want to tell anybody that I had a problem because I was ashamed, and I felt like it would be an admission of like being broken. And the reality is, like at least in my experience, we do still live in a world where there is stigma about substance use and substance abuse and mental health, right? That there is in some organizations and in large parts of our society, this idea, and Alena touched on cultural, depending on what type of culture you come from at home, there may or may not be a language of recovery. And so there's there's so many layers of like shame and guilt and those types of things. And so that's I guess what I'm just trying to identify is like that's been a struggle for me throughout my journey. And Alena and I were talking about this before the panel. We often have clients here and run into this. I run into this in 12-step meetings that are really resistant to 12-step recovery. And I'm not here to bang that drum totally because it's just one thing. But I was joking with Alena there's a point in my recovery where I stopped getting picky about what medicine I would be willing to sort of take, right? Like, and Alana brought up to me, like, yeah, if I had diabetes and someone handed me insulin and I was like, you know what, I don't know that I want to take that. You know, at some point, are we really being picky and about what type of recovery we want to engage in? I'll be honest, I'm at a point where I'm willing to hear anything anyone has to say about you know, about recovery and giving me options. You know, I'd love to hear from anyone on this call today. You know, about new treatment things that they're involved in and approaches and theories and all of that, because this alcoholic, this addict I need as many things between me and another drink as I can possibly get. And so I mix AA with you know, with mindfulness and the DBT skills I learned at Edgewood, and therapy, and, you know, I exercise and eat well and sleep well and family and friends. And, you know, if there's something else, I'm probably missing things, but if there's something else that I can put in there, like, I am all ears. Because but that took me it's taken me a really long time to get there. And so, you know, trying to get that across to someone newly in recovery, or just kind of dipping their toe in the water is, you know, people tried to tell me that 10 years ago, and it's a journey. So we're lucky in that in our roles, we get an opportunity and a bit of a forum and platform to deliver that message, and you know, hopefully it sticks, and so I'm grateful that I get to do that every day.
Thank you so much. And I think both of you did a great job of kind of getting this point across too, but everyone's recovery journey is so different, right? Like, these types of panels are great. You get insight on people's recovery journeys, what worked for them, what didn't work, and that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for them or not. And you both said that countless times. And I think it's just like a point that needs to be hit home constantly, is that it's so individualistic, everybody's journey, right? Like, and you said too, like, it's not a one size fits all approach. It's not. So hearing all these different types of initiatives that work, that don't work, and again, acknowledging that it's personal, I think is like a great step and a great like takeaway from this.
Yeah. Recovery is a holistic approach, right?
Yeah.
It's mind, body, and soul. So it's not, you know, it's not just fellowship. It's, you know, how do you take care of your body? How do you know, when we talk about self-care, it's not like putting masks on and, you know, eating pizza in bed. I'm talking about, like, how do you fill up your buckets? Like, what is the soul searching things that you do, you know? And I have a number of things that I do to do that. And that's what re-energizes me, right? Like, that's what makes me feel alive.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point too. Like, a lot of people, even like popularized in media, will be like, how to take care of yourself. And then, yeah, it's like, put on an under eye mask or that kind of thing. And while sure, if that nourishes you, but there obviously is much more that you could do to fill your buckets, as you said, where a face mask is a very like Band-Aid effect, where you might feel good for a couple of minutes with the nourished skin, but it's there's obviously something that needs to be done to help you more with those kinds of things.
Yeah, it's balance. It's a combination of things that work. Definitely.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's what people were saying in the chat, is that life is literally about balance, especially in recovery. Yeah. And John talked about it too, where it's like anything that can separate you from you and that substance is like adding into your like treatment, right? Into your recovery.
Yeah. It's also recognizing when you need to slow down, you know?
Yeah.
This idea, you know, what do normal people do? And it's like, I don't know what normal is anymore, but there are days when I have to, you know, firstly, I have to put my recovery before anything else. If I don't have my recovery, if I'm not sober, then I have nothing, right? Everyone suffers. My kids, my family, my friends, you know, my coworkers, I won't have anything. So sometimes I have to recognize, like, Alena, like, you are, this is what you're feeling, this is what's going on inside you, and you're going to have to slow down today. You're going to have to do things differently in order to stay on the path. And that, that self-awareness is something that I've gained in sobriety. It didn't come naturally to me, but it is one of the benefits where I'm able to, like, check in with myself. And we do that a lot at Bellwood. We do a lot of check-ins where it's like, what are you feeling? Like, what are your SUDs? What's going on? And, those are great awareness building so that, outside of this, I can take those pauses and be like, what do you need to do to take care of yourself in this moment?
Yeah, that's great advice. Okay, to kind of shift things, I guess, to more like the alumni network, there's a question, how has the pandemic changed your philosophy in keeping the alumni connected, and what specific challenges have there been? I'm sure there's lots we could talk about.
Yeah. So I would say just first and foremost, the pandemic obviously put a stop, quite literally, to people meeting in person. And for anyone in recovery circles, I think would agree that had detrimental effects. It also opened up a new world of recovery through Zoom and that type of thing. There are people, my home group who are, after we opened up in person, I realized, like, they're walking in, they'd never been into the space before, but I'd known them for a couple of years because we'd gotten to know each other on Zoom. So yeah, that human connection became different or changed, I guess. I believe that ultimately has led to some improvements in the way that we communicate. While I go to in-person meetings, preferably, I do see the value, and I still use Zoom meetings. So just in general, I think it's exposed the like different technologies to the recovery industry that may not have been at use or in use as prevalently before. Certainly for EHN, I think what we have come to realize is we're a growing organization. We recently just added another treatment facility in Fort Steele, BC. Our recovery ranch, EHN Recovery Ranch, formerly top of the world. So we've been growing, and what we've come to recognize is that our alumni efforts historically were sort of very centered on our individual facilities, and when we only had 3 or 4, that made sense. So I think our new approach now is to start working on a strategy of, like, how do we connect our alumni, because we're all able to connect virtually at any time, and have become kind of used to that. We started to work towards a more like national alumni program. So a good example is Alana and I and the team, earlier this summer, we had an alumni event where we invited alumni to the Blue Jays game here in Toronto, and there was like 135 alumni and friends came, but we had alumni from Edgewood and Sandstone and Clinique Nouveau Départ and our IOP program and Bellwood, obviously. Like we had people fly in from different cities to come in, because that was in April, just so eager to get in person, right? And so I think our goal is to really start working towards more of those, like, all-encompassing, we do stuff for our specific facilities and the alumni because they want to hang out with the people they were maybe in treatment with, but we're starting to do things a little bit bigger. We just had a recovery run here in Toronto last Wednesday for our New Start Foundation, which raising money for youth mental health, both at Bellwood and for EHN as a large organization. And one of my goals to work with the team for next year's recovery run is like, I really see this as something where we're inviting, Renaissance, and we're inviting Trafalgar and Homewood and the other treatment facilities, because it's a recovery run, right? We're inviting alumni that live in Ontario or across the country to come to this. It doesn't matter where they went. even if it's not within our organization, certainly we want our alumni to feel like they are part of something special as an EHN alumni. But I really believe that we are stronger together in recovery. And so, I saw some names on here from folks that are tied to some other treatment facilities, and I'd love to hear ideas around how we can come together for sort of joint effort type events. Whether that's a baseball tournament next summer or a run or some type of charity event over the winter. I think our new approach is like it needs to be less divisive and more about wrapping in as many people as we can. So I think the pandemic, while unfortunate and dark at times, was hard and all that. It's also, when you get knocked back down, I can speak from my own experience. When I'm knocked down, I come back like that much stronger and more sort of eager with like something new, like a new arrow in the quiver or whatever the analogy is. Like I think we're, as an organization and our alumni team, we're right there. We're ready to start doing things bigger and better. We need our alumni, right? We need them to stay engaged and be inspired. And so in order to do that, we need to provide them with the right supports and tools and resources and know where to find us and make it easy for them to find us. And so that's our team's job, and we're working on that. So
awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for that question.
Alena, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, John, you did a really great job of talking what we do to keep people connected. I got sober on Zoom. So for 2 years, I was solely a Zoom baby. Of course I'd been to an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. I've been trying to get sober since 2015, but I never really stayed in order to really get the feeling of what a 12-step program or group was like. I'd always come and leave. And so it's incredible what can happen when, that's your only option, right? Like this is all you really know at this point is to go online. And it's amazing that people can stay sober through that and create connections on Zoom. Like that's one of the beautiful things, despite the fact that everything shut down, right? And also for me, having gotten sober during the COVID and having to do that on Zoom, it actually made it easier for me to get to meetings, right? Like there are clear disadvantages and then there's clear advantages, which is I was able to go to meetings. I have kids, I have a busy life, I have a lot going on, but I was still able to get to meetings when I needed them, right? I was able to if I needed a meeting 3 times a day, I was quickly able to go online. There's 24 hours meetings. I was able to do that. And although I did connect with people online, the real connection for me, the real unique, special, incredible bonding experience that comes with connection came when I started going in person. So there is nothing like going to a meeting in person and feeling the energy that's in the room and feeling that level of hope and that everyone's coming in there to sort of help each other get well. Like there's nothing that can sort of, there's nothing on Zoom that can create the same type of experience. And so I do encourage people that's why we hold meetings in Bellwood that are in person now. And we've slowly gotten rid of all of Zoom because we want people to connect with people one-on-one. And I also have a disease that wants to keep me isolated, right? It's a disease that wants me, to stay in my house. And so it became very convenient for me, to get in my pajamas and go to a meeting online rather than actually getting out there and meeting someone from the program and talking fellowship and life with them. And so I had to do opposite action, which is another thing you learn in DBT here. I had to push myself to get up and go out to a meeting and push myself to get phone numbers and push myself to connect with those people. Right. And that has been one of the biggest defining factors about what has kept me sober this time compared to any other time. So, in the past, I might have known a lot about getting sober, come to treatment, go to detox, do what I need to do for the day to get sober. And then I would relapse. Whereas now I'm actually living in sobriety. And that's a different thing, right?
Yeah, 100%. There's been a lot of people throughout the chat as well talking about clients that have like started their sobriety journey through Zoom as well, and now never attended an in-person meeting, and now are able to do that. So it's just like, again, it just goes back to everyone's journey is so different. And I think there's like such a level of accountability too, to like not force yourself, but to get yourself to leave your house and like your dwelling where you're comfortable, and to really push yourself and put yourself out there. But then on the flip side too, like it might encourage more people to maybe participate because they're in a safe space that they know. And so again, individualistic, it benefits, it can be consequential for people too. So I think everybody has like their pros and cons for sure. But the pandemic has definitely thrown curveballs for everybody, but I'm glad that we were able to thrive throughout it. And then I think we have time for one last question. So what about alumni connecting with current clients and clients in transition? In treatment, I benefited from making contact with others who had been there and were still active in recovery. So John, would you like to speak to that first?
Yeah, so again, during the pandemic, we had very little, if no, real ability other than phone calls for clients to connect with alumni and that type of thing. Now that we're sort of past that, we've just over the summer sort of worked on, and Alana's worked really hard on getting our like 12-step meetings back in the building here. And I'm just speaking about Bellwood. All of our facilities to varying degrees have put efforts into this. And are sort of slowly opening up. I know Edgewood and Bellwood have both sort of recently opened up like visiting hours for clients and things like that. Are starting to let alumni back in the building, and so we're doing that live through our alumni volunteer program that Alena manages. Through our 12-step meetings that are in-house, we're mostly alumni coming in to facilitate those. But we also have, we ask for consent and get consent if clients are willing to give it upon graduation. That allows us to add them to a database where we can share their first name and phone number with future clients. And so that's a project that is currently in flight to sort of revamp, because like I said earlier, we're working on a national strategy. And so, if you graduate from Ledge Hill in Nova Scotia, but you're from, Winnipeg, Manitoba, there might not be other Ledge Hill alumni in Winnipeg, but there might be like 5 people that recently graduated from Bellwood and live down the street. And so the power of EHN is the network that we have. Like we have these facilities, our intensive outpatient program, people are from all over the country, right? And are using Zoom to do that, have been using Zoom still are. So we have this ability to connect people across the country that I think sets us apart as an organization in recovery and treatment. So if you're an alumni and you're on this call, Jeremy's going to share our contact information. Please reach out, tell us how you'd like to help, what you'd be interested in doing, and we will find an opportunity. There are no shortage of opportunities. Alena and I and the rest of the team across the country are meeting with people every day, saying, what am I doing when I leave? Right? How can you help me build a life? What am I going to do for fun? Right? There's a classic, I'm leaving treatment. Like, what am I going to do for fun? Well, there's nothing better than connecting them with an alumni in the community who can show them, provide that experience, strength, and hope, and maybe take them to a meeting or just for dinner or hiking or whatever it is, but be also a person they maybe feel a little more comfortable talking to these things about. So we have thousands of alumni across the country. My job is to work on how we continue to bring them together and make it more seamless. And so we're working hard on that. And I think as for the alumni on the call, we've got lots of great things coming down the pipe in the coming year. Yeah,
Great.
thanks for that question. If anybody that wants, I know there's been a ton of comments, I can see them popping up. I'm happy to speak to anybody on this call, and Jeremy will share our contact information about anything really. So please don't hesitate to reach out after this call, and I'll make time.
Perfect. Thank you. Alena, would you like to speak to this?
Yeah, I love this question because I really believe that creating a community that is close knit, both in treatment, before treatment, if possible, after treatment, is just like a key element toward, getting well, right? Because we do this together. And I think that, in the past, when I look at my own experience, I think what was missing was the fact that I did not stay connected to any alumni. I went right back into my life, and although I had said that I would, I went right back to, toxic people or places, and just right back into that old life. And so I think one of the beautiful things about Bellwood, and one of the reasons why I'm so fortunate to be able to work in this alumni role, is because they actually do this, and they actually understand that, and they actually want to build that. And John's really, that's like his vision, is to create this like thriving community. And a lot of that has to do with, like, a lot of what John said is super relevant. It's like, what do I do for fun? What does fun look like in sobriety, right? Like, what does that look like? Before we know, although it was no fun, that's what I did, right? And so I have to, when you live in the community and treatment, you see how much clients use each other to get through this process of being in treatment. And I always tell the clients, like, our role when we get out is to create that same type of community on the outside. And how are we going to do that? Okay, well, let's start by, if you're living in the city, come back into the building and volunteer, like, show others what it's like in those transitional pivotal moments outside of here, to stay engaged and to stay committed to your recovery. Like, that is so helpful to someone in here. And then the events, like, if you would have told me that we're doing a comedy night in October, on October 15th, in Toronto, and we've sort of rented out this venue, and it's going to have like refreshments, and it's yuck performers. If you would have told me that I would laugh in sobriety, like, I would never believe that, because, all my life was just like tears and heartache. And so it's so amazing that we have this community, and there's 150 tickets, and it will be sold out. We have these community of alumni who still want to be a part of, that want to get together and want to laugh together and want to enjoy a Saturday night together. And that is like, again, like I keep going back to, that's the beautiful thing about sobriety. But when you come from the gates of hell, and then you come out and you create this same environment that you had in here outside there, and you're enjoying life, like, this is a life that's worth living. It's really wonderful. And so there's, John mentioned a number of things we do for alumni on the outside. And, I'm glad COVID's over, because we're actually able to do these things, right? And a lot of my role is helping everyone stay connected, in terms of, like, I build a connection with them. I help show them what recovery is like. It's like a lot of mentorship and coaching, and then they go and create that for themselves on the outside. And that's been such a huge blessing for me, professionally and personally.
Great. Yeah, thank you. I like talking about all the events and stuff that we've been able to do. I had the pleasure of working with both of you for Pride this past year. And that's just another way that I'm sure people brought up several times when they were volunteering at the booth. They're like, I didn't think I'd be able to attend a Pride like sober. Like, I didn't think I'd be able to have fun. And we were fortunate enough to be in like the sober space where there were still drag performers who are also in sobriety. Like, it's still like you said, Alena, like, you're coming from the gates of hell. You don't think that there's light or fun or laughter or anything, and then having those opportunities and being able to provide those opportunities, like, I can only imagine the feeling, because like I'm not in recovery, and I was so touched, and I was so like excited for everybody to be able to participate and have fun, and just like to be able to let loose in like a new way, but in a way that they were able to find comfort within that journey. I think was so beautiful.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was a great event.
It was so much fun.
And I
Well,
wanted to add, sorry, Jeremy, to cut you off, but if
okay.
anyone does want to follow up with me as well, I am more than welcome to field any questions, comments, or just get together and talk about things. I would love that.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll for sure include both of your contact info in the follow-up email, but unfortunately that is our time. And thank you. I just want to echo what everybody was saying in the chat, is that your information, your insight, your intellect, and everything above is just second to none. And we really appreciate the vulnerability and your openness with willing to share your recovery journey and then your professional side as well. So thank you both, Alena and John.
Thanks for doing this, Jeremy.
Of course.
Thank
And
you.
then everyone else attending today, we will be sending out a follow-up email with a copy of today's recording, as well as your CEU certificate. As I mentioned, I will include Alena and John's contact info, so please feel free to follow up with them. Until then, talk soon. See you later.